My name is Greg, and today we're going to talk about a practical guide to Power BI. First, we'll talk about what Power BI is and when should you be using it. We'll also talk about how to integrate your data into Power BI and create some really stunning and interesting visuals. We'll also discover the difference between using Power BI inside of Power Query or Power BI inside of Excel. So, believe it or not, there's a lot of different features that are found inside of Excel that are also found inside of Power BI. And technically, Power BI actually started in Excel. Then they took out a couple of different tools and made their own program called Power BI, and they took off with it. Then finally, we'll talk about how licensing works and how it works with Power BI and integrates with other Microsoft solutions. But first, Power BI is a business intelligence and data visualization platform that's been developed by Microsoft. It's really not just one thing. A lot of people don't realize that Power BI is actually a collection of things. It's software, it's services, and different connectors. They all work together to help you to build different visuals, but also to help you clean up your data, organize your data in different ways, and make a incredible looking visual that is interactive with all the other visuals that you create inside of Power BI. It can also help you to figure out different insights with your data by looking at different types of visual, and it has artificial intelligence built into the different services and applications. So it'll help you analyze your data and kind of get a little bit more out of your data itself. It can also be used to connect and visualize all kinds of different types of data and
Hi,
infuse
Greg.
those
I'm so sorry to pop in. I just wanted to let
Yeah.
you know that your screen is not sharing.
Oh, thank you.
No problem at all.
Let me try and reshare it. Thank you. Let's see if I'll stop it and start it again. That
We
should be
see it
better.
now. Thank you.
I think so. So yeah, it's a whole bunch of different things. Now, when should you use it? The content collaboration and delivery of delivery of Power BI can be used to create and share reports and dashboards with your team, your organization, or with individual people. The whole concept of it all really is self-service data. In other words, someone builds the data models, other people can build the reports, but just about anybody can build the reports. Once the data model is created, in a sense, the hard part's done. Once the hard part's done, creating visuals becomes a lot easier and simpler. In fact, to create certain visuals, all you have to do is type in a question. The management of the data and analytics with Power BI, you connect to all kinds of different types of data sources. You visualize them by using different types of visual, and you can put them inside of different applications like Teams or SharePoint or even standalone applications by using something called Power Apps. Then you can also streamline the whole process. See, you can use Power BI to help automate using Power Automate to streamline business processes like data entry and reporting, or even the creation of different things. It can also be used to analyze customer data, gain insights, figure out different types of behavior with the data, take a look at different preferences that people have or different trends. It really does a whole lot. And now, enough talking. Let's actually use it. So, I want to show you how this actually works. And for that, I'm going to start with Power BI. This is Power BI, the desktop version. You need the desktop version in order to build the models. To build the model, you can click on Get Data. And when I click on Get Data, at the very bottom is More. When I click on More, there's a lot more. You can connect to all kinds of different types of data, loads of different types. You can connect to different types of data like text, XML, even folders. Say you have a ton of different files inside of a folder. Yeah, you can actually use a folder to import data. Anything that's in that folder gets imported. You can also import things like PDFs and extract data from PDFs. Yeah, a PDF. And there's a whole lot of other data sources too. Some of these you might recognize. Other ones, maybe not so much. But this definitely keeps me on my toes. They keep adding more and more data sources all the time. And to be very honest with you, I'd be really hard pressed to tell you what's not sitting in here. And even if it wasn't sitting in here, you can write blank queries. And that means that you can connect to any type of data source. So let's try one. I want to try connecting to a website. I have a website here on StatsCan. Is Power BI come with a software suite? Power BI, the software, is free. So anybody can download Power BI and install it. The service is not free. We'll talk about the different levels of licensing and what you get with the free stuff and what you get with the other levels of software. So there is a free version that's available, but it it has some drawbacks. There are some other things that you'll want to use, and for that, you're gonna have to pay for it. This is a StatsCan website, and here I'm looking up household spending for Canada, the different regions and different provinces. The data goes all the way back to 2010, but it stops at 2021, which is okay. I can adjust the reference period here on the web page and click apply and start to get the different records and data that I want. So here I'm grabbing information from 2010 all the way up to 2021. But there's more information that I want too. Not just this, there's other stuff. I can click on add and remove data and add, remove different types of data here. Here is where I can be very specific about the different regions of Canada. So I can break this down and I can select all these different regions. So I can go through and put a check mark beside all of our different provinces. They've broken down the Atlantic region and the Prairie region, so they've grouped it. So if you just want to handle it by groups, you can. But I don't want to do that. I would much rather grab all the information from all the individual provinces that we have. When I click on apply, it'll add that information to the table underneath. So I'm building the information. There are different stats that I can apply, but there's really only one stat. The household expenditures, again, I can have it broken down by all kinds of different headings. Food expenditures, there's lots, loads. I'll stick with what I have here. The reference period, I've already changed. I'll apply this one. So I haven't really made any changes to this, but I will click on apply. And now I've got a little bit more data that I'm working with. I'm happy with the period from 2010 to 2021. And I'll click apply again. So basically, I have all this data in front of me. And now I have a download option. When I click on download, there is a download for database loading. That's the one that I want. I don't need the symbols or anything like that. I really just want the raw data. So if I click on download selected data, I can choose that and it should download just like it does. It's downloaded as a CSV file. So I can click on get data and a CSV file is really a text file. When I click on text, I go find my data. It's in my downloads and there it is there. Essentially what I'm doing is I'm building the model. I decide and can decide exactly what I'm extracting from here. And I do that by using another feature. The other feature is transform data. This feature has a different name. It's called Power Query. So when I click on transform data, slowly but surely, it opens up in a brand new window on my other screen. But I can bring it over here and I've got my reference date. But I can sort and I can filter things out. There may be different things that I don't want. There may be different things that I do want. For instance, I have all of Canada, but I also have all of the different provinces. Now, sometimes when you click these drop downs, it tells you that the list is incomplete. To complete the list, I can click on load more, and then all of my different provinces, they all show up. I don't need any blank rows, so I can take that out and click OK. And any blank rows that I had in the data are now removed. A lot of times we can't alter the original data, and Power Query allows you to slice, dice, and clean up that data as you see fit. But I still have Canada mixed within all the different provinces. So Canada is all the different totals, total expenditures for different years, current consumption, food expenditures, and all the rest. But for Canada, this is another interesting thing that you can do. I can right click on this table on the left hand side, and I can make what's called a reference to it. I can also duplicate it, which would double the size of my data model and possibly slow things down. With a reference, the reference constantly references the original data. And if I think that the data has changed, I can always click on refresh. In fact, I can even set up refresh intervals once I'm finished building my dashboard or building my report. So to extract all of Canada, but to put it in one data source, I can right click on this data source and create a reference to it. This reference, I can give it a proper name instead of calling it whatever this is. And I can call this one Canada. I can then filter out all the different provinces. I only want Canada, so I can put a check mark right beside Canada and click OK. Now, the only data that I have is just Canada. But with this one, I can right click on this one and create another reference. And this one, I can call provinces. I give it a brand new name. And this time, though, I filter out Canada. I uncheck Canada, click OK, and then it removes Canada just like this. If there's any other bits of information that I really don't want, I just remove it. Like this column. I don't really need it. And this column, it says the same thing over and over and over again. I really don't need that in my data. So I can click on this one, hold my control key down, click on this column, and I can scroll over and search for additional columns like dollars and whatever this is. The units I don't need either. And any other columns of information that I just can't see myself using. The value is the amount of money that they've spent, and I don't like the idea that it's called value, but we'll change that. These columns, I don't need. So I can right click on any of these columns and remove the columns. I can also remove other columns too. Wish I had this one in Excel. When I click on remove columns, it removes all the columns that I don't want. This is the value column. That's a terrible name for it. I can right click on the column and near the bottom, I can rename this. I can give it a much better name and call it currency. When I hit my enter key, it gives it a brand new name. It recognizes it as a whole number. And how do I know? Well, that's what these symbols mean. You'll notice that you have different symbols on different columns of information. Some have ABC, some have 1, 2, 3. And if I click on the 1, 2, 3, you can see the other types of data that Power BI can work with. This one is a whole number, but I'd actually like to change it to a fixed decimal number. You won't get the dollar signs, but you'll get partway there. But that's okay. See, Power BI now recognizes that this is money. And using different types of formulas, we'll be able to do things with this column that we couldn't do with, say, a text column. But that's it. I'm happy with what I have in front of me. And that is the whole point of Power Query. Power Query helps you to transform your data, remove duplicates, remove things that you don't want, and even add in things that you do want. You can transform your data with lots of different types of tools. You can pivot columns and unpivot columns. This does different things that would take you hours, if not days, inside of Excel. Even just adding simple columns, like maybe an index column where it numbers all the rows from 0 to whatever, or from 1 to whatever, or you can have it start at 10 and go up by tens. Or my whole point that I'm trying to make is the fact that you can insert lots of different types of columns, lots of different types of ways. I'll head back to home. And now to carve everything in stone, all I have to do is click on close and apply. That should close it, apply my changes, and start to load in the data. So after a couple of minutes, I'll have my data sitting inside of my data model, but it's connected to that website. To take a look at my data, I go to my table view. When I go to my table view, I can see all of my data. This way, I can make sure that the data came in properly, which it did. The data came in. I didn't remove the columns inside of Canada, but I just wanted to show you that inside of provinces. However, I have my data. If you import more than one table, you can actually build the models and connect the models together. This really is just copies of the same table, so there's no real reason for me to connect them together. Next is the report. At this point, I can now build some really interesting reports. On the right-hand side is the Canada table, and I can fold this out and grab things like household expenditures. I can take that and drop that onto the page, and it puts it inside of a tile just like this. It's decided to create a table. I know it's created a table because all the visuals are here on the right-hand side. And you have to admit, looking at this list, it's a lot more impressive than the different types of charts and graphs that you can build inside of Excel. There's a lot more. In fact, if you get bored of these ones, or you don't see the one that you want, click the 3-period button and click on Get More Visuals. When you go to Get More Visuals, there will be thousands of different types of visuals that you will be able to download and use. But back to our visual. Now I can add in the values. Again, I didn't change the name of the column. However, I can come here, click the 3-period button, and see all the different things that I can do with this particular column, like rename it. I could rename it and call it amount. When I hit my enter key, that carves it in stone, and amount is now at the top. Everything gets alphabetized. Out of the box, I have a question. Will the report update automatically? when the website is updated? No. What I'll have to do is I'll have to create a schedule. So at a certain date, at a certain time, or multiple times throughout the day, I can create refresh schedules that allows this to go back out to the website and update the information. So if the information is being updated constantly, then I can stay on top of that. I can set up my own schedule and the schedule happens automatically. So for the final end user, it's completely automated. They open it up, and if they want to see if there is any new information, they can click on a refresh button. If not, it'll refresh according to the schedule. I'm going to take this amount, and since I have the table all checked off, right, all selected, I can click right beside amount and have the amount added. Just like this. When I click on amount, it tells me all about the column. And here, I left it as a whole number. I can still change it to currency. I don't have to go back to Power Query to make that change. But now it looks nice. And I may not want to leave it like this. You have to admit, this really is just a table. I may want something a little bit more interesting, like, say, a funnel chart, like this. Now, if there are different things that are throwing the numbers off, like total expenditure, total current consumption, these may be different things that I would like to remove from the data because it is kind of skewing the visual. And to do that, I head to transform data. I click on transform data, and that gets me right back into Power Query. So I can click on the table and I can filter different things out. Here I've got total expenditure, total consumption. So I can click the drop down and I can uncheck those. I can uncheck total current consumption and total expenditure. While we're in here, you'll also notice that tobacco products is in here twice. And that's because one of these is not being used anymore. This one. You'd kind of have to know that. And that's part of using this tool. You really do have to know your data forwards and backwards. That way, you'll be able to extract different things that you know are going to throw the numbers off. When I click OK, that creates the filter. Now I can click on close and apply. And when I click on close and apply, it will remove those two things that I didn't want anymore. I didn't have to refresh or really do anything else. But now I've got this beautiful funnel chart in front of me. Or if you don't want a funnel, well, you can change it to a pie chart. Or you can change it to a donut chart. It really is whatever you want. I'll stick with the funnel. Just like this. But I've got space for other stuff too. I can shrink the tile up a little bit, give myself a little bit more real estate here. There are different guidelines that show up to help you to line things up. And now for the other table. Provinces. If I drop in the geolocation of the province, just like this, right, it gives me a table. I do have a mapping feature. There's a little bit to this one. When you click on the mapping feature, if the map doesn't work for whatever reason, it's probably because the field is either in the wrong spot or the other issue, IT might not have turned this on yet. Yeah, this actually has to be turned on. Now, you won't notice it here in the desktop version. In the desktop version, it should work. If not, then it's been turned off in the desktop version. So You'll need to go to File. You'll need to go to Options and Settings, click on Options, and turn on your maps. So your maps are actually under Security, and you'll need to put a check mark where it says use map and filled map visuals. So make sure you got a check mark in there if your map doesn't work. Here, it's decided to drop the location into legend, but I'll drop it into location, and it should get all of my locations correctly. Then I can take the currency and I can drop that into the bubble size. If I want to divide it up even further, well, I can add in the household expenditures and drop that into legend. But now I have two different visuals. I'll widen this one just to make it a little bit bigger here. But now I've got two different visuals. If I click on a province, right, you'll notice the rest of the provinces fade out. If I click on something like shelter, then the rest of the bars also fade out. But I'm going to take this map and I'm going to shorten this map up, and just like this. And then I'm going to drop in this field, household expenditures. I can take this and drop this in just like this. It gives me a table, but I can change that to a slicer. When I change it to a slicer, I now have a way of being able to select and narrow different things down, like clothing and accessories. You won't notice much difference with the map, but if I delete this, take it out, and then for Canada, if I drop in the same thing, all on its own, turn it into a slicer, I can now click on clothing and accessories, and it focuses on clothing and accessories. I can select education. And as you can see, it changes. The map's not going to change because the map's not connected to this table, but that's okay. I can also change the way the slicer works. Doesn't matter the visual. Whatever visual that you click on, you can use this paintbrush to modify the visual. Here, since I've highlighted the slicer, I can change the slicer settings to a vertical list or tiles like this. Now I've got tiles to click on. And as far as the selection goes, it needs the control key to select multiple things, but I could turn that off. I could turn it off so now you can select multiple things just by clicking. And that way, people could build their own graph on the left-hand side. I'll take this table out, I'll click onto it, and I'll cut the table out and put it on a separate page. Cut works, so you can click on the cut button, or Control X works just as well. I'll make this tile a little bit larger, just like this, so all the tiles fit. Then I'll add a second page at the bottom. Reports can have multiple pages. Now I can take this map and make the map a whole lot bigger. For the map, I can use the legend. I can add those household expenditures into the legend. And then, oops, sorry, wrong one. Make sure you grab the right field in the right spot. So I can take this and I can drop this into legend and have it divide up, just like this. Now you can click on different pieces of the pie. And as you can see, it still changes. Clicking on the same piece of the pie resets it. I'll shrink this one up just a little bit. So it's a little bit tricky, but I'll select the edge of the map. And I'll move this over a little bit. It'll zoom out. And once again, I can add in those household expenditures and add the money beside it. But the table, it now works. I can click on anything in the table, and the map and the table talk. There are a ton of different visuals that you can create with this. But at this point, you're pretty much finished. I can label this page and call it Canada. I can label this one and call it provinces. And when I'm ready, I can click on publish and I can publish this to what are called workspaces. It'll first ask me to save the file, and I'll need to keep the file in a safe spot. For the purpose of this demonstration, I'll keep it on my desktop. I'll call it Power BI, stats, and info. And I'll click on save. At this point, I would publish it to my workspace or to some of the other workspaces to allow other people to use the data model and create their own visuals. But you can also grab data from other types of data sources, as I said. Once again, I have another site to grab data. Again, it's another one that looks like this. All right. But with this one, I'm going to grab the table. So to grab this table, I need this address. I'll copy the address, head to Power BI, click on Get Data, and choose Web. I can then drop in the address and click OK. It'll take a minute, but it connects to the website. Once it connects to the website, it breaks the website down into tables. To see what's inside the table, all I have to do is click on it. Once I click on it, that can be the table that I import, or this one, or this table, or this table. I'll select this one. I'll put a check mark beside it. And as you can see, it's not quite perfect yet. I'll transform the data. Once I transform the data, it brings me to Power Query. I can take out different things that are null or empty. So I can remove the nulls, I can remove the blanks, and any headings that I can't see myself using, like Geography 6. When I click OK, that starts to clean it up. But I also notice that these are different columns that I need. See, I don't need statistic. So I can click the drop down and I can remove statistic. And when I click OK, I realize that the first row is actually the different headings. And I got a button for that too. I can click on Use First Row as Headers, and it promotes that row. And now it's perfect. I can give the table a much better name and call it Food Expenditures. And now I can click on Close and Apply. And once again, build my own visuals. So on the right-hand side, I can head to provinces, or in this case, food expenditures, or Canada, and build my different visuals. They're all still here. I haven't lost anything. So I can add in the food expenditures, just like this, and add in all the different years. If there are different years that don't have information, then obviously I don't have to add them. For instance, if I take a look, some of the years don't have information, like 2018 and 2020. But now I got lots of visuals to play with. I can use a stacked area chart, just like this, and build some incredible visuals with this. Now, as I mentioned, this started in Excel. In Excel, you have a lot of the exact same features. The only thing that you're missing in Excel is the actual visuals themselves. But in Excel, if you go to data and you click on get data, this is Power Query. So I can import data from all kinds of different sources, like a website. And as long as I have the address of the website, then I can drop in the address and import the exact same information. So I can click here, paste in that same address. And when I click OK, it works exactly like Power BI because that's where Power BI came from. Now, the first time that you connect to websites, it looks like this. You can connect anonymously, or if you need a username and password to get into that website, this is where you would use Windows authentication or basic authentication or your organizational account. Since there's no username and password for StatsCan websites, I can use anonymous and click on connect. Once I click on connect, that connects it. It connects it to the StatsCan webpage, and I can import the exact same information as before. And because it does sit on a website, I can set up refresh schedules even inside of Excel. So even in Excel, when the information does not sit inside of Excel, you can set up a refresh schedule. That's kind of a weird one, eh? As long as it doesn't sit in Excel, you can set up a refresh schedule. So that might mean creating another Excel file for your reports, which wouldn't be unusual. So eventually, slowly but surely, it will connect to the website and I'll have the exact same options. Eventually. You also have Power Pivot. And what Power Pivot does is it helps you to manage the data model. When I click on data model, that opens up Power Pivot and it looks very similar to Power BI when you're importing data. You can get external data here from different databases or from different services, but it's not as robust. Honestly, your best bet is to work with Power BI, or if you're importing data, then you can also use the data tab in Excel. So whether it's data using Power BI or data using Excel, you have a lot of the exact same features. You can't import from as many data sources. So there are different data sources that show up in Power BI that do not show up here. But you can always write a blank query and copy and paste queries from Excel to Power BI or from Power BI to Excel. Also inside Power BI, if you're still having trouble with your data, head over to the communities. The communities are amazing for helping you out if you're trying to connect to something and it doesn't work. So well, that is just a very, very small and brief example of what Power BI does. But I promise you, I'm still not showing you 1%. To show you at least 10%, I'd need a few hours of your time. It's that big and it's that cool. Next, let's talk about licensing. Next, I want to talk about the licensing aspect of this. So, when it comes to creating different visuals, you can create some wonderful and exciting things, but there are different levels of licensing when it comes to Power BI. You have Power BI free, and this plan is free and includes very basic features like being able to visualize the data, create reports, and share them on a very basic level. Then you have the Pro level. This plan costs around $10 per month per user. It includes all the features that you have with the free version, plus there's additional features like collaboration, data governance, and advanced analytics. And then finally, you have Power BI Premium. With Power BI Premium, this plan is approximately $20 per user, and it includes all the features of the Pro plan, plus some additional features like larger data sets, faster access to your data, faster refresh rates, and there's a lot more advanced administration when it comes to deploying and controlling exactly how Power BI is used and how the different reports are used. But that is all the basic licensing information. Now, don't hold me to this because Microsoft constantly changes all of the licensing programs. In fact, just the other day, they changed all of the licensing for Copilot, and they just launched Copilot, and they've changed this licensing many different times. So keep an eye on the licensing. Head to the Power BI blog. You'll find that inside of Power BI and inside of Help. Yeah, I know. Help's not always helpful. But this time, Help is actually really helpful. There's tutorials, there's guides, and if you want to see what's coming up next, head to the blog. But that is the end of my presentation. So I'm going to turn this back over to Melanie.
Thank you so much, Greg. That was amazing. If that was not even 1%, I don't know about you, but that was amazing. There's so much I'm thinking we can do with this. So if you have any questions for Greg, put them in the chat now. We'll give a couple of minutes for you to do that. But while we're doing that, I'll take you over to our website, greatcanadiantraining.ca. If you loved that and you're like, okay, I want more Power BI, we can come up here, courses, and then Power BI there. And so if we go down, if you want just the fundamentals, we have that. And then becoming a pro, you take it to the next level. And then if you want to work with DAX, we have a course on that as well. So those 3 levels, or you can do the entire thing in a boot camp, 5-day boot camp, which is pretty fantastic. So our upcoming public classes, we do have some of those in January, February, March. So you can get those there, and I'll include links to that in our follow-up email. Or if you want to know more about some of the things that Greg was talking about with Excel, with Power Query, with Power Pivot, we do have courses on those that hone in as well on those. We also have more free webinars coming up. We've got a really good one next month as well with Greg, Power Automate. So, keep the power going in 2024. We'll have Power Automate. And then in March, we have Empathy in Business. That's going to be another. Oh, I don't think I was sharing on the website, was I?
You were sharing.
I was. Okay. Something weird came up on my screen. Sorry about that. My tech is being techie today. Yeah, so February, we've got Power Automate. March, we've got Empathy in Business. Both of those, you can register for. The link for that will also be in the email that I send out tomorrow with the replay. And we've got a handout with that as well. So if we have any questions that came in.
Yes. Here's a question. What is the process for creating a report for end users to access? So what I showed you is really and truly what I showed you was the basics of building the model. Once you build the model, you'll then have to publish that. And from there, you use the Power BI service to build different reports, to access the reports, or to work with the data model to build additional reports. Then, once you do that, you'll then need to create what's called an app. So the users have all the reports built into an app. And that way, you might have 20 different reports, but it's under the umbrella of a single app. That way, it's easy and simple for the users to access that app and to have all of those different reports inside the app update themselves. So that would be the whole process to getting it out to the end users. Any other questions?
There was one that had come in earlier in the presentation. I'm just gonna pop it down to the bottom of the chat for you there, Greg.
Yeah. When the data changes on the website, you'll have to set up a uh, a refresh schedule. So you set the refresh schedule up once you publish it, and once you publish it, you have all kinds of different types of data settings, and a refresh rate and schedule is definitely in there, and you can set up some crazy schedules to get it to update. Is there any competing software? Absolutely. One of the competing software that's out there that's quite popular is called Tableau. Tableau is approximately $1,500 per user. So the licensing on it is actually quite expensive. But typical Microsoft, they take a look at a lot of different products that are out there. And a lot of times, what they'll do is they'll simplify the products, they'll make them easier to work with. So Tableau is a little bit more difficult to work with, it's a lot more technical. Power BI is kind of your typical Microsoft product. It's a whole lot of buttons, and they've simplified some pretty complicated things to make it easier for users and faster for those that do know.